स्टार्ट ओके। जय हिंद। मैं ब्रिगेडियर हेमंत महाजन, स्वतंत्र भारत 75, विवेकानंद केंद्र, कन्याकुमारी, महाराष्ट्र और विवेकानंद प्रबोधिनी, मुंबई की तरफ से आपका स्वागत करता हूं। इसमें एक व्याख्यान मालों का आयोजन हुआ है, जिसमें अलग अलग एक्सपर्ट्स अलग अलग विषयों के ऊपर बातचीत करने वाले हैं। इसलिए मैं इन दोनों संस्थाओं का आभारी हूं कि आपने मुझे इस व्याख्यान माला के अंदर बातचीत करने के लिए या मेरे विचार आपके साथ शेयर करने के लिए बुलाया है। मेरा विषय जो आज का है वो है अफगानिस्तान। पिछले कुछ दिनों से अफगानिस्तान ये लाइमलाइट में है। 15 अगस्त को हमारी देश की स्वतंत्रता को 75वां साल पूरा हो गया। The country was busy in celebrating the start of 75th year of India's independence. Suddenly एक बातमी आ गई, एक न्यूज आ गई कि the Taliban have entered Kabul, which is the capital of Afghanistan, and Taliban has taken control of complete Afghanistan. After that, all these days since 15th of August till today, we have been talking of only Afghanistan, Taliban, Pakistan. So what I will do today is I'll talk on this very hot topic, which has great implications on India's security. The topics or the parts that I will cover is Afghanistan, a very brief history. Then I'll talk about present status of Afghanistan. I'll talk about various ethnicities there. Then I'll talk about as to why Taliban won there. Then we will also cover as to the role which China is played there, what kind of a role is Pakistan playing, and most important, what are the implications of all these happenings on India, and what countermeasures we should take as a country. So what I will do is to cover up this all these issues. I will uh, start off with a PowerPoint presentation, which will very briefly tell you as to how this country is made of, what is kind of a composition that we have, so that we are able to understand the geography of this complete area. So let me share my PowerPoint presentation with you. I'm not able to uh, everybody has different kind of laptops and this kind of a
Yes,
thing, so
yes.
problems
Yeah,
come up.
please go ahead,
So,
sir. Please go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
please
we
understand.
will now talk about Taliban and its composition. What we need to understand is the Afghanistan is not a cohesive area. Approximately 42% of Afghan population, 42% of Afghan population consists of Pashtuns, or also called as Pathans, or also called as Pakhtuns. So Pashtuns, Pathan is one and the same thing, and they are approximately 42% of the population. And today Taliban is dominated by the Pashtuns, meaning that 90% of representation of Taliban is by Pashtuns or Pathans. But it is equally important to know that nearly nearly 58% of the Afghan population is non-Pathans. Who are these? These are all shown here. First, you have the Uzbekis, which is about 12% of population. You have the Tazakis, which has got 24% of population. You have the Hazaras, which is 16% of the population. Now, if you look at religion-wise, 99% of population of Afghanistan is Muslim and 1% is others. About 35-40 years back, 2% of Afghanistan population was Hindu and Sikhs, or in terms of number, it was varying between 8 to 10 lakhs. Today, the population of Hindu and Sikhs is fallen down to less than 4,000. So where are the other people gone? Either they have been killed, or they have been converted, or some of them have run away to India. Now, what we need to understand is that out of this, about nearly 250, 300 families have been evacuated from Afghanistan as it stands now. But some of them are refusing to come because they want to remain and protect the Gurudwara which is there. So, what is the summary now? Summary now is, while Islam is a religion there, but Islam is divided into two parts as far as Afghanistan is concerned. The Hazaras, which form 16% of population, is mainly Shias, and the remainder, so that means remainder population of Afghanistan is Sunnis. The Pashtuns are Sunnis. So therefore, there's always a great divide between the Pashtuns or the Pathans and the Hazaras. So we must understand this geographical divide of Afghanistan, because they are not a single entity. Now, we will very briefly talk about Pakistan's role in all this happenings. Pakistan has been supporting Taliban. Now, if you look at the Taliban's history, what we need to understand is Taliban basically, or Afghanistan, has been a graveyard of superpowers. It has remained a country dominated by tribes like Pashtuns, Uzbekis, Tajikis, Hazaras, etc. Now, in the 19th century, Great Britain or UK tried to tame Afghanistan. It went and fought four wars in Afghanistan. British Afghanistan War 1, 2, 3, 4. Over 10 years they fought. It was said that on the British Empire, the sun never set itself, but Britishers lost and they could never conquer Afghanistan. Then in the 1980s, it was USSR, that is United Soviet Socialist Republic, which tried to capture Afghanistan. 10 years they fought, and USSR was a very modern army. They had a very experienced army. The generals who came to Afghanistan were the ones who had fought in the Second World War. They had the most modern technology, number two superpower, but they could not capture Afghanistan. And the resistance against them, of course, was put up by the Pashtuns or the Pathans, then called as the Mujahideens. And it was, of course, the Mujahideens had been supported by them. And then there were another alliance called the Northern Alliance, which fought against them. Now, one of the heroes of fighting against Russia and also against Taliban was a Tazaki by the name of Ahmad Shah Massoud. He was a great fighter. He was almost a secular person. He wanted modern Afghanistan to come up. And when Soviet Union was defeated, when Afghanistan government came into power, Ahmad Shah Massoud was the defense minister. Then it was post 1980, 81, 82, 83, the Taliban started rising. Taliban's birth can be attributed to Pakistan. The Pashtuns were all uh, uh, turned into Ugravadis, turned into extremists in the madrasas of Pakistan. And slowly the extremism started rising. The Taliban came up, they started fighting with everybody, and it was Ahmad Shah Massoud who fought with them for 9 years, 9 or 10 years. Then came the Al Qaeda, then came the ISIS, etc. So Afghanistan became a haven for all the extremist forces, all the terrorist camps. In fact, it is said that today, if there is any terrorist attack anywhere, the roots lie either in Afghanistan or Pakistan. Or this area is also called as the Afpak area. Now, what we need to understand is this is the map of Pakistan, and this is the area of Pashtuns living on the Pakistani side. Now, what happens is this is the border which Pakistan has with Afghanistan. The border is called the Durand Line. Taliban does not recognize Durand Line. The dimensions of the border are given here, 2,560 kilometers, and the Afghans, the Pashtuns on both sides of the Durand Line actually form the Taliban. Now, they are a fighting community. They beat up firstly Great Britain, thereafter the Soviet Union lost their war, and now the Americans have run away. They are the only superpower left in the world now, and they have been defeated. They were not been able to tame the Taliban despite 20 years of fighting. and how the Americans have lost, how they have run away, has widely been covered by the media. So I will not get into more detail. But what is important is now what is the situation as it stands today? The situation today is that whole of Afghanistan now is ruled by Taliban. How did Taliban defeat an army which of a superpower like USA? Not only that, USA has the most modern technology, the most modern weapons, but they were defeated simply because United States did not want to fight a war in the in the Afghanistan uh, by coming on ground. They wanted to bomb Afghanistan only from the air. So that is how they lost the war, and their technology did not prove useful into the rugged terrain of Afghanistan. The USA, before leaving, raised an Afghanistan army of nearly 3.5 lakhs. Now, this was very well trained. They have all the modern weapons, tanks, and armored personnel carriers, and troop carriers, and mortars, and artillery. Afghanistan war of today must be the only war where an army of Taliban has won without firing a single shot. Nothing, nobody was killed. No firing took place. The Afghanistan army of 3.5 lakh just melted away, and the Taliban's entered Kabul as victorious. How did this happen? It is simply one of the most important reasons is uh, the president of USA, Mr. Joe Biden, has said that we gave everything to the Afghan army, all the modern weapons, all the training, etc. But what we could not give them was the will to fight. So today, media, a lot is covered about the failure of USA, a lot is covered about how Pakistan has helped. But now, most important part is what effect it has on the world and, of course, on India. Let us also talk about as to how Pakistan helped Afghanistan or the Taliban. Taliban has been helped by Pakistan by many ways. Nearly 30 to 40,000 of the Pakistani troops were sent to Afghanistan in civil dress, dressed as terrorists or as Talibanis, and they provided the leadership to the Afghan army. All the planning of the war was done by Pakistani officers. What kind of a logistic should be there? What kind of, suppose a city of Kandahar, there are, let's say, 2,000 Afghan army troops. How much of Taliban should go and fight them? Which direction should they fight from, etc. All the military planning, tactics, strategy has all been done by the Pakistani army. Not only that, Afghanistan even had an air force. But when the Afghan air force tried to go into the air to carry out bombing of Taliban soldiers who were concentrated for an attack, Pakistan uh, threatened them that should your air force come in the air to fire at us, our air force will go and strike at you. So the Taliban, so the Afghanistan Air Force got scared. They did not fly, and the Battle of Afghanistan was lost without firing a single shot. A lot of psychological war had taken place. A lot of propaganda warfare had taken place. News was planted that initially Taliban will share power with Afghanistan government. News was planted that the president of Afghanistan has given orders not to fight, to avoid bloodshed, etc. And ultimately, even before Taliban entered Kabul, the president of Afghanistan had run away. So Afghanistan was left without a leader, without army which was willing to fight, and therefore therefore when the Afghanis entered, the Talibanis entered Kabul, there was no resistance whatsoever. So now, broadly, the Afghanistan people can be divided into two parts. Some kind of a northern alliance which is taking place, which consists of Tazakis, the Uzbekis, etc. And but Taliban still controls major area. Of course, all these sub-tribal groups are today fighting for their share into Afghanistan. So whether Northern Alliance will actually fight Taliban or whether they will only want more power in the Afghanistan government, only time will tell. But the most important issue is a war has been won without firing a single shot, and Taliban's rise creates a problem for whole of the world. Some facts of Afghanistan are given here. 6,050 kilometers of the area they have. It's a fairly large country, and it is mostly mountainous. The weather is extreme. It is also almost a cold desert, but life is very tough. Nothing grows there except possibly drugs, etc. And the population, as per 2010 census, is 2.3 crores. Now it must have risen to 30 crores. And there are various languages that are spoken, nearly 30 various dialects are there. And religion, of course, is 99% Muslims. But out of that, nearly 14-15% are Shias who are against the Taliban. Education is very low, and very briefly we'll talk about we will talk about the economy of Afghanistan. While Taliban has won the battle, but running a government requires a formal economy. Today, Taliban also had an economy. Their income was nearly $1.5 billion per year, but it was all based on smuggling of Afu, Ganja, Charas. It was based on extortion. It was based on levying taxes or anybody who crossed through the Afghanistan area. It was based on selling weapons. It was based on training various terrorist groups and charging money from them. Now, this kind of a unauthorized economy cannot support a government. While a modern government, which consists of central government, the various state governments, and governments at a city level, this requires a budget. Now, we all know in India as to what kind of a budget the central government has, what budget does the states have, and what kind of a budget does a corporation like Mumbai or Pune has. We require a lot of money because a government is expected to provide certain services to its citizens like water, electricity, drainage, governance, banking, etc. Now everything in Afghanistan is shattered. Afghanistan, Afghanistan's economy would be a separate subject, but very briefly, I would tell you that Afghanistan today had is 75% of economy, or nearly 85%, was dependent on aid by United States, the European countries, India, and the world economic institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Now that all has been stopped. They had about $10 billion as their foreign exchange reserve, but the Afghani currency is fallen to an all-time low, and all their money is lying in the banks of America. Now that money is not available. So how does Taliban run a government which requires money? So Taliban is trying to talk sense ki yes, we require money from everywhere, but they say ki we are not extremists, we are not going to kill people. But the way pictures are coming out of the Air Force, you can see people falling out of the aeroplane, etc. Today, people there are scared because all these people, since last 20 years, have had education. They have experienced some kind of a democracy where everybody was allowed to work, etc. And now suddenly going into a Stone Age area and trying to start the law of Sharia, not permitting a lot of things, is not liked by them. So complete economic activity of the country has come to an halt. So now who will help them? Now here this map particularly shows you as to what kind of a money, what kind of a economy Taliban inherits. It gets some money from Pakistan, from USA, from Saudi Arabia, from Muslim countries, from China, Libya, non-state actors like narcotics, transport mafia, philanthropists, etc. Now, what I want to tell you is that today all the support, official support, has gone from the USA, and it is very unlikely that United States and the World Bank and the IMF will help them shortly. So now who helped them? So it is said that they will be helped by China. So now what we will do is we will see as to what is likely to happen in short term and what is likely to happen in the medium term, long term thinking on Afghanistan is not very easy. Presently, India has not recognized Taliban, neither are we expected to recognize them for some time. Till the time situation improves, situation becomes clear, it becomes clear as to who is going to rule the Taliban, who is going to be their various ministers, how will they behave on ground, how will they take care of minorities, how will they take care of various developmental work that is taken place. So therefore, there are many issues which are not very clear now. So what does India do? What should be India's policy? Now we should, of course, engage with Afghanistan Taliban because there is no other option. But we should lay down certain ground rules that you will not talk about Kashmir. Kashmir is an integral part of the country. You will not talk about your land should not be used for launching terror attacks on you, and you will not help Pakistani army to carry out anti-Indian activities. So today it is said that 50 to 60,000, which is the strength of Pakistan, which is the strength of Taliban. Now these elements are without any work. So these are the people who are available to Pakistan to put them, make them infiltrate into the Kashmir Valley, into Kashmir, and they are going to create lot of problems for India, especially raising the level of terrorism. Today, it is said that Pakistan will utilize the Taliban's to come from the international border side, try to reignite Khalistan movement. Of course, as far as Kashmir is concerned, the problem is will be serious, and Pakistan was not able to keep the pot boiling in Kashmir. Now it will, of course, do that. Now have a look at the Jammu and Kashmir map. Today, it is expected that through the areas of Pakistani occupied Kashmir, from where the terrorists enter into J&K, this is the map of J&K, they will also be accompanied by the Talibanis. And Talibanis are being tough fighters. It will raise the cost very high. There will be a lot of bloodshed. There will be a lot of violence, and the terrorism in Kashmir will once again be reignited, in which they'll also get help from China, etc. So it is also said that Kashmir today, if you look at the state of terrorism in Kashmir, we find that there is no terrorist activity in Ladakh, there is no terrorist activity below, that is the area of the Jammu, Udhampur, etc. The terrorism today in Kashmir is only restricted to the area of Kashmir Valley, and this valley is about 130 to 140 kilometers is the length, and 30 to 40 kilometers is the breadth. It is said that there are about 200 terrorists who are operating in this area, and every week you hear a news that 2 terrorists killed, 3 terrorists killed, and of course Indian army sheds lot of blood. So now in trying to kill these people, now if the Talibanis come, will the level of violence rise? Is the Indian army capable of taking care of all the threat? The short answer is yes, we are capable of taking care of our border. So now what I will do is I'll stop my presentation here, and I will uh, uh, take certain other facets of the Pakistani problem and cover up certain other angles which are important. Okay, so now let us talk about certain other aspects, such as how is Pakistan helping Taliban right now? How is China helping Taliban right now? How is India trying to tackle this problem? What are India's short-term aims, middle-term aims, etc.? Pakistan, I've already told you, have helped them militarily, are trying to act as their, let's say, foreign ministers, trying to go to all countries, trying to unite the world to help Taliban. That is what Pakistan is doing. Now, will they be able to force the Talibanis to come via Pakistani occupied Kashmir into India? So the short answer is yes. Taliban is grateful to Pakistan for all the safe havens that they provided, all the logistics help that they provided. So therefore, they will definitely want to help Pakistan. While presently they are saying we will not use our thing against India, but they are never known to keep their words. And just yesterday, there was a big bomb blast outside the Kabul airport in which a lot of people have been killed. So we should expect violence to take place in Pakistan will attempt to infiltrate them into Kashmir and raise the level of violence. Now the main issue is how will we be able to tackle this violence? And as I mentioned to you, the Talibanis or the Afghanis or the Pashtuns or the Pathans have defeated three superpowers up till now. England in the 19th century, USSR in 1980s to 90, and then USA as it stands now, and an Afghan army of 3.5 lakh just melted away by hearing name of Taliban. So how will India deal with it? Now, we have to rest be assured that Indian army is more than capable of tackling the Taliban threat. I will take you a bit into history for you to understand as to how we have dealt with the Afghanis in the past. 1947, India became independent and immediately we had a war with Pakistan which lasted on, the war was on Kashmir and it lasted for nearly 1 year. Now, you must remember when the war started, it was not the Pakistani army which came and attacked Kashmir. It was the Toriwalas, it was the tribals. Basically, it was the Pathans who came, nearly 20 to 25,000 of them, and came into various parts of Kashmir. And they had almost reached Srinagar airport when the Indian army was was brought into Kashmir, and Indian army's one division or about 20,000 troops destroyed the 25 to 30,000 of the Pashtuns or the Pathans, and they were killed, they were arrested, and Kashmir was saved in time. So this was the first defeat that we inflicted on the Pathans from the area of Pashtun or from the area of Northwest Frontier Province in Kashmir. That was the first defeat. Now, secondly, again in 1965, we had a war with Pakistan. This war started off sometime in the month of October, November, but before that, Pakistan had launched what is called as Operation Gibraltar, in which again they got the tribals, which basically means Pashtuns or Pathans, nearly 20 to 25,000 of them. It was organized, it was commanded by Major General Akhtar Hussain of the Pakistani army. They were divided into 12 forces. Each force had about 5 to 6 companies. Each company had about 100 to 120 of these Afghanis or the Pathans, etc. Now, again, Indian Army in a period of 3 months were able to eliminate and kill most of them, and this threat was nullified. What we must understand is that later, when the conventional war took place with Pakistan, which lasted for about 3 weeks, we defeated the Pakistani army, and Indian army had reached almost on the outskirts of Lahore. Now, who was the chief of Pakistan's army staff? He was Field Marshal Ayub Khan. He was the ruler of Pakistan, and he was a Pathan. So one another Pathan was tamed in the 1965 war, and he had to sign the Tashkent Agreement with you. I'll not get into the details of the Tashkent Agreement, but again, Pathans and a Pathan leader was defeated. Now, when we talk of 1971 war, one of the most famous photograph of the 1971 war, which is very historic, is General Niazi signing a surrender instrument in front of Lieutenant General Jagjit Singh Arora of the Indian Army. Now, who was General Niazi? General Niazi again was Pathan. Okay, so another Pathan was defeated here. So, after 72, when Pakistan started Operation Topaz or Operation Karakoram, in which they wanted to start terrorism in India. So they started terrorism in, which is called as K1, that is Khalistani terrorism in Punjab, K2, that is the Kashmiri terrorism in Kashmir, and K3, rest of India. So again, Pakistan in 80s, 90s, and 2000 tried to infiltrate foreign terrorists, which were basically Pathans from the Afghanistan, etc., into our area. And Indian Army has shed a lot of blood in Kashmir. Nearly 3,500 Indian soldiers and officers have been martyred here, but they have been defeated. So the Afghans who came again and again and again in 1947, in 1965, in 1971. Also must remember that in 1971 war, also there were a lot of Baluch and Pathan battalions in the Pakistani army, and 94,000 soldiers of Pakistani army had laid down their weapons in front of Indian army. So therefore, we have been able to tackle them very effectively up till now. Their efforts to start terrorism into Kashmir have been defeated. So now let us come down quickly to the present situation. As I mentioned to you, 200 terrorists, Pakistan will try and put Talibanis inside. Yes, they will come. Yes, they are hardy, they are tough, they are good fighters. The Kashmiri terrorists are not good fighters. They are more like social media warriors. They can show off themselves by holding a rifle on a Facebook, etc. But in terms of fighting, they are no good. So therefore, foreign terrorists are required, and that is where Taliban will fill up the hardcore elements in the terrorist activities. Now, today, the situation in Pakistan is quite difficult. Pakistan today is on cloud nine or very happy that they have been able to achieve strategic depth in Afghanistan. But Pakistan is going to suffer very badly because of rise of Taliban. Number one, they are going to face a lot of economic isolation from rest of the world. Even the Muslim countries are not willing to give recognition to Taliban because they are worried that some kind of a terrorism of Al Qaeda and ISIS will start off in Syria, Libya, Iran, etc. Iran is not happy because Hazaras will be ill treated. Then Pakistan itself is very unhappy because when Taliban came in Kabul, they released 5,000 hardcore terrorists who were in the jails of Afghanistan or in Kabul, and most of them were an terrorist organization called TTP, that is Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Now, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is an organization which fights against the Pakistani army, against the Pakistan government, and they have been able to create a fair amount of violence inside Pakistan. What we must understand is how violent is Pakistan today? What kind of a terrorist activity takes place in Pakistan? Traditionally, 85% of Pakistani army was deployed on the India-Pakistan border. Today, more than 50% of Pakistani army is carrying out various anti-terrorist operations either in the Northwest Frontier Province against Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan or against the Baluchistan Liberation Army in Baluchistan, or is guarding the China-Pakistan economic corridor. So therefore, Pakistan today is a nation fighting with itself, and the level of terrorist violence there is very high. Now with Taliban's coming, their main source of income is smuggling of drugs. A fair amount of drugs are coming into Pakistan, which is going to spoil the Pakistani economy and Pakistani youth. Also, the Pakistan Afghanistan border is more or less open. More than 3 lakh new refugees from Afghanistan have come into Pakistan, putting pressure on the Pakistani economy. So, Pakistan today is going to have a lot of problem by coming up of Talibani regime in Kabul. We'll very briefly talk about China. Today, China wants to fill up the vacuum which has been left behind by United States. Now, China's economy is the world's second strongest. They can definitely provide and help to Afghanistan Taliban, but why should they help them? they will help them, because some experts feel that today there are $3 trillion worth of rare minerals in Afghanistan. Some rare minerals which are required for laptops and lithium batteries and all. I'll not get into the details, but it is said that it is a very huge kind of a deposits exist there. So therefore, what will China do? China will want to extract them by giving economic aid to Taliban. Will China be able to extract them? The short answer is it is going to be very difficult, simply because today China, if the minerals were so precious and they were available in such a huge quantity, then USA, which ruled Afghanistan for nearly 20 years, who are a technological superpower, who have all the corporate world with them, how come they could not uh, utilize these minerals and export, mine them and export them to USA? If USA could not do it, China doing it, you can understand the degree of difficulty. Second, it is said that China wants to extend its One Belt, One Road, or also called as Belt and Road Initiative, or also called as linking up various world capitals with world-class roads into Central Asian republics. So today they have what is called as the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is $16 billion of aid has been sunk into that, and Pakistan and China, despite its formation, have not been able to use even 1% of its capacity, because Pakistan doesn't require roads. It's a country where main source of occupation is terrorism, and terrorists don't require roads. Gwadar Airport, which has been built, they thought that 5,000 ships will visit the Gwadar Airport. Not even 5 ships are visiting Gwadar Airport per year. So as it is, CPEC is a white elephant. It is not only made Pakistan a client state or an economic slave of China, but it is also ensured that China has sunk its money in a bottomless hole called Pakistan. Now, China wants to extend this CPSC corridor from Peshawar, which is the capital of Northwest Frontier Province of Pakistan, into Kabul. Now, this road, of course, road is existing now also, except that it will be made into a very huge road. Now, what kind of an economy does Afghanistan have? It doesn't have any worthwhile economy. So, what will move on this road? Nobody knows. So, it's going to become another white elephant. Now, from this uh, Kabul, they want to join up these roads with the Central Asian republics like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, etc. Now, today, the economies of all the Central Asian republics is in doldrums. So, how will the Chinese benefit? So, you're joining one elephant, white elephant to another white elephant called a road to Kabul, and from there to Central Asian republics. So, I am actually extremely happy that if China invest its money into Afghanistan, it is going to fall into another trap called Afghanistan, another black hole called Afghanistan, and they are going to suffer very badly economically. In fact, it is said that why did Americans run away from Afghanistan? One of the reasons talked about is Americans realized that it is not possible to tame the Talibanis, or train the Afghanis. So it knew that once it goes away, no European country is going to come there. So ultimately, it will be China which would want to come there under the pretext of exploiting these minerals. So therefore, they have almost let them come inside. China will get active in the days to come. Only assurance that China wants is that the Talibanis will not fuel terrorism into the Chinese province of Xinjiang, which consists of Muslim population, the Uyghur Muslims, which comes to approximately 2 crore population. And today China has put 20 lakh of the Uyghur Muslims into jails for many reasons. So China is going to get caught into a Chakravyuha called Afghanistan. So very briefly, I have told you as to what is the implications of Afghanistan being taken over by Taliban, implications for China, for Pakistan, for the world, and for India. I would end up my presentation by telling you that the Talibani threat is definitely serious, but we don't need to rush up. Ultimately, it is the Taliban which requires India more. As far as India is concerned, we should be very clear that all other Hindus and Sikhs who are there, they should be brought back to India. The investment which India has made there should not be destroyed. And more important, that the moment they decide to send Talibanis into Kashmir, we are going to stop any relations with this country. So we are more than capable of taking care of our national interest, of our security needs. But what is uh, uh, very clear is that Afghanistan future is very, very uncertain. A great game is started in Afghanistan, where various superpowers are going to fight with each other, be it China, be it USA, etc. The sufferers are going to be the Afghani people, and a lot of bloodshed can be expected in the days to come. We are in for turbulent times, but we don't need to worry because Talibanis are going to find it very difficult to govern thereafter when they want to fuel extremism. Al Qaeda, some Talibanis will go to Al Qaeda, some will go to ISIS, some will go to Africa, etc. Some will help the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. So our share of the Afghani Taliban is going to be small, and we are more than capable of taking care of our security needs in Kashmir. Of course, the Indian Army will have to shed a lot of blood, for which it is obviously ready. So I'll stop here now and end up my presentation by saying that Afghanistan is going to pose a serious security challenge to India and to the world, but we are more than capable of taking care of India's national security. Thank you very much and Jai Hind.